Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting. Technically a North Cowichan Committee of the Whole meeting, but practically it's a joint meeting of both North Cowichan and City of Duncan Council. I'd like to welcome Mayor Staples and her council to this meeting as well. And start by acknowledging, as always, that we are meeting on the traditional territory of Coast Salish First Nations, and we're very thankful to do so. With that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is an electronic meeting. It is open to the public, but of course, because of COVID, public access to chambers is not permitted, either for the public or, in this case, for those attending the meeting. That's why we're doing this remotely. The meeting may be viewed and live streamed at northcowichan.ca, and an archived recorded version will also be made available to the City of Duncan for posting on their website at duncan.ca. With that preamble out of the way, I have an agenda item here is to start this off, an approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion that the agenda be adopted as circulated? Moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor? And opposed? That carries. And this is a little awkward. Duncan councillors don't get to vote because technically, as I said, it's our meeting, but you'll certainly be more than welcome to participate in the discussion and the questions as they arise. Next item on our agenda is pro forma. It appears in this case it's public input submission sent to agenda@northcowichan.ca by 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Have been circulated to both councils by way of an addendum agenda. I don't believe there was any public input. I would turn to our Deputy Corporate Officer, Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there was nothing received.
Thank you very much. That moves us into business. Item 4. The first one is item 4.1, a presentation from School District 79. Some of us have seen this at the CVRD, and it's a fabulous presentation. It's visionary, and it gives us a real view of what's coming for that property. So with that, I'd like to introduce Candace Spilsbury, the chair of the board for the Cowichan Valley School District, along with Robin Gray, the superintendent, Secretary Treasurer Jason Sandquist, Director of Communications Mike Russell, all from the Cowichan Valley School District, and Tom Sparrow, who's the Chief Project Officer for the school replacement project. Tom, some of us know from the work he did on the hospitals up in Courtney and Campbell River. So I'd like to welcome them to the meeting, and I turn it over, I guess, to Chair Spilsbury for an introduction of what it is that you're going to present there. Candace, are you in?
I squeal CM Nasiya. Good day, my respected friends. I am here regarding the new Cowichan Secondary School that we are excited to be involved in the replacement of. So if Amy could put the slideshow on, I could begin the presentation.
It's our experience at North Cowichan that when a screen is being shared, it's best for all of us to turn our video off to preserve bandwidth. That way we give Candace a better chance to get the message through. So please turn your video off and hold your questions until the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I've had the opportunity to speak with many of you at recent presentations at the Cowichan Leadership Group and at the CVRD, and I thank you for allowing me to join you today. I will have a bit of an overview of that previous presentation, as well as some exciting new information that has happened since our last talk. Slide, please. And what we're talking about is the Cowichan Secondary School Replacement Project. And next slide allows us to acknowledge that for thousands of years, the Cowichan peoples have walked gently on the unceded territories where we now live, work, learn, and play. We are committed to ensuring an innovative, strong, and culturally rich school environment for our Kakasanem, our sacred children, that will help them prepare for a world they will create. Please change the slide. It has been a long journey to get to a new Cowichan Secondary School, and I'm so grateful to those of you who have been able to be part of that journey. The current Cowichan Secondary School is over 70 years old, and although some of you in this meeting may be graduates of this school, it truly no longer serves our community or our learners. The replacement of this school has been the board's top priorities in facilities for many years. As you know, our community has long been advocating for the replacement of this aging school, and in December 2019, after much community involvement and advocacy, the Minister of Education came to the current Cowichan Secondary School and announced $82.1 million to build a replacement. The school will be built for 1,100 students with expansion capacity for 1,500 students. Much has happened since that announcement. Firstly, we have hired a full project team to guide us through this project. We've talked to students, parents, staff, and partners about their vision for the new Cowichan Secondary, and we've gathered all of that information. We then engaged with community stakeholders about our Neighborhood Learning Center, or NLC. An NLC space is space within a school that is dedicated to the community and school use. This part of a school is where the two worlds come together. In engaging our community for the NLC, we heard that there was a desire to have an Indigenous language and culture center, health and wellness facilities, innovation and technology space, and a mini theater considered. Groups of community members representing each of these ideas met 3 times each to provide feedback and input into what our neighborhood learning center should house. We then put out a request for qualifications for companies. The RFQ process had a number of applicants, 3 of which were invited into the request for proposals, or RFP process. Following this process will help us ensure we get the best quality school for the best investment. I'll talk more about our RFP process soon, but that package also includes an indicative design or artist interpretation to give a prospective proponent an idea of what the school could look like. I'll share those pictures with you a bit later. If you could change the slide, please. So our benefits to the community as a whole will be tremendous through the construction of this new school. From local tradespeople to local small businesses and everyone that supports them, our project will be an economic driver for the Cowichan Valley. Through the project, we will be tracking the overall benefits to our community, including those mentioned above, as well as things like the use of apprentices and green initiatives that will help our school be a viable and healthy place to learn for years and years to come. There will also be numerous times when we will engage local businesses and government agencies. We will always ensure our local chamber is part of these conversations. We will be reporting on the economic benefits from our projects and will ensure to share this information with you. If you could change the slide, please. The last time the district built a new secondary school was 1994, when we built Francis Kelsey Secondary in the South End. A lot has changed in education in those ensuing 27 years, and we want to be sure that our new school will be ready to help facilitate exceptional educational experiences for years to come. To that end, in the days before COVID stopped our non-essential travel, our team toured many new and under construction schools throughout the island and Lower Mainland. We talked to staff and students about how new schools should look and feel and what things they felt were necessary to have a school that was built for generations. If you walked into a newer school, you would likely not feel a sense of familiarity. They are so different now. So much has changed in educational design, and the thoughts of how to facilitate learning by incorporating design and important features that enhance learning are evident. Please change the slide. A new school has to be an inspirational space. The design has to facilitate 21st century learning that is based on competencies, not rote knowledge. Our learners are being prepared for a world they will create, and we need to ensure we are doing everything we can to facilitate that. Today's learning builds on core competencies of communication and collaboration, creative thinking, critical and reflective thinking, personal awareness and responsibilities, positive personal and cultural identity, and social awareness and responsibility. A new school has to be designed to meet those challenges. What you'll see in our new design is a focus on bringing students together. Learning pods with classrooms and common space for collaborations will be seen throughout. Science labs that incorporate multiple classes and interdisciplinary lessons are included, and TED, Technology, Engineering, and Design labs will all be built with the aforementioned competencies in the front of mind. Along with the internal construction of such spaces, we are careful to create spaces that are bright and welcoming and will be places students want to be and want to be engaged. Next slide, please. We know that exciting, beautiful, and creative spaces are the best spaces for our learners, and that has been our goal since day one. As part of our request for proposals process, our team has had to create an indicative design for the school. What that means is that they have taken the information we are looking for and given it life. This indicative design is a literal interpretation of our wishes. I was happy to have been able to show you this last week to a number of you. It is very important to note that the indicative design has been created by the district's architect team as a proof of concept, proof that it can be built. The proponents' architects will be designing the new school for us to choose. This indicative design helps proponents visualize where the school could fit on the site, how it could be oriented, what the profile could look like, and where we want things to be situated. The design I'm about to show you is that design, so please remember it is just an indicative design. It is extremely rare that an indicative design ever becomes the final product. So next slide, here it is. This approximates where the new school may sit on the property. This indicative design has the back of the school along the Trans-Canada Highway, the front facing our partners like VIU, the south exposure faces the Cowichan Community Centre, and the north exposure faces Beverly Street and the Thrifties Complex. Next slide, please. This rendition shows the indicative design for the west elevation facing VIU. As you can see, we have a strong focus on bringing natural light into our new school, as evidenced by the large amount of glass we are hoping to have incorporated into the final design. Next slide, please. As I alluded to earlier, we surpassed a huge milestone in the process to build our new school just last week when the board issued the request for proposals to our three proponents. This RFP was the culmination of an incredible amount of work, and we were beyond excited to issue it to three well-qualified companies who will now take our vision and give it life. The three companies invited into the RFP process are Yellow Ridge Design Build Limited, Kinetic Constructions Limited, and Urban One Builders. Each of these three companies were successful in our request for qualifications process late last year. The issuing of the RFP is a significant event in the project. Using the information contained in the RFP, the three companies are now able to begin the process to create designs for the new Cowichan Secondary School. The issuing of the RFP is only one step in this process. We are continuing by hosting meetings with our proponents, networking events with Cowichan tribes, business-to-business events, so these companies can learn what local contractors and companies can bring to this project, among many more. This process will continue until late summer, early fall, when the board will select the preferred proponent to build the new Cowichan Secondary School. We anticipate this ceremonial shovel ceremony in the fall, and we are targeting spring 2024 to open the school with students. Next slide, please. And that's it for now. Hi, Sepka. Let's move to the next slide, which asks if we can answer any of your questions or receive your comments. Thank you.
All right, if we can stop sharing the screen, thank you very much, Candace, and everybody turn your video back on so I can see folks, and just wait for that to sort of happen. All right. Everybody's slowly coming back in. Councillor Douglas, I saw your hand go up. You have a question?
Yeah, a couple quick questions, Mr. Mayor, through you to Ms. Spilsbury. The first question was with regards to how you're constructing the building. Has there been any thought or direction from the province about including mass timber in the construction of the building?
Well, I'm going to add that question to Tom's response here. Could you help us with that, please?
Hey, thanks, Candace. Yes, Rob, you'll find on most vertical projects today, outside of hospitals, we're looking quite closely at mass timber, and it certainly is something that would be considered in this project. There's also, of course, the wood first component that's been inserted in all of our major vertical infrastructure projects across the province for about the last 10 or 15 years. But would definitely looking at that option as well.
Oh, great, because Mr. Mayor, or perhaps Mr. Swaby can speak more to this than I could, but we're moving ahead with constructing a new Rcmp building, and that had been one of the key components of it, was incorporating mass timber, but with the recent increase in lumber prices, that was unfortunately removed from the project as we moved to structural steel. And yeah, with your project moving forward in the hospital, it would be great to see other projects with more funding from the province incorporating some of these ideas.
I have to say, Rob, that the other problem though is actually the supply of mass timber. This is a serious issue in the province right now. There are very few manufacturing facilities actually capable of providing that. And of course, there have been a number of projects over the last year or two that have utilized that concept. So that is also something that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
And Mr. Mayor, the one other quick question, I know there's probably others want to speak as well, but in terms, Ms. Spilsbury mentioned the jobs and economic opportunities that could be created from the project, and that you would be monitoring and reporting on this. What I find often is when we talk about economic development, that focuses on the private sector, whereas these big capital projects led by, funded by the province and the federal government have that big economic impact. And I'm wondering if you've done any projections so far on what you anticipate the economic impact is going to be, or is that something that you're going to monitor once the project is underway?
Thank you for the question, Director Douglas. I'll pass that to Tom.
Oh, thanks for that, Rob. I think that a number of folks are familiar with how we implemented the North Island Hospitals project. That was a $606 million project, and we tracked $167 million in services and supplies across Vancouver Island. And as well, we also tracked the employees, the tradespeople and others that were working on the site. And we provided those statistics on a month-to-month basis. We'll be providing exactly the same type of information on this project. In fact, I'm even pushing for a little bit more because we're learning to educate and train our private sector proponents. So that information, again, will be shared on a regular monthly basis with the community. In addition to that, though, we'll also be, of course, tracking and working on apprenticeship programs, and also connecting with VIU, the Cowichan Tribes, Work BC, and the school district on opportunities for expanding on apprenticeship and trades programs within the community through VIU and actually through the school as well. As far as advanced numbers, as far as trades go, et cetera, we'll probably be able to have a better understanding of that actually over the next 3 or 4 months as we go through the next phase, as Candace alluded to, with the RFP collaborative process. And that information probably will be available, I would say, within about 3 to 4 months' time.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any hands. All right. Oh, Councillor Marsh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious, Mr. Sparrow. I love all the glass, but I know that the reason the hospital board chose not to build down there was because of, I think it was liquefaction in case of an earthquake. So is it glass that's a little bit more sturdy than the average glass we'd have in our homes?
Over to
It's Yeah, it's much sturdier. It's a lot thicker, and there's more panes. Plus, there's from a geotechnical perspective, you're quite right about the liquefaction issue. We've done significant geotech analysis to help our proponents better understand what sort of foundation and structure that they'll be constructing there. But we do this on every project, not just this one. And this is in a high seismic area. So the structure is actually designed to maintain a level 6 seismic level of activity, which is actually higher, you'll find, than what it is in some parts of California. But they have to design it to meet those requirements, and that's part of our building code requirements as well. So these sort of things are definitely taken into consideration through design development.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say I was very impressed with the hospital that you were involved in and how you kept the light and the people near the outside of the building. And I imagine you've done a similar thing here.
You'll see that these sort of issues are incorporated into what we call our scored elements piece, as far as natural light, daylight, and ensuring we get that directly in, not only to the outside of the facility, to try to get into the center of the buildings as well. You're going to see it. It's going to be an amazing facility. And of course, with 21st century learning, which is what Candace and Robin and the school district are looking for, it's a whole new way of delivering education that I think for most of us that are on this panel, at least I'm looking at my gray hair, I mean, it's quite different than the facilities that unfortunately we learned in today. Or yesterday year. It's going to be very exciting to see the designs as they unfold, and as they do, as we go through design to development, Candace and our team will be able to share that information and those designs with the community as we go through each phase of the project. It's going to be lots of fun.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Councillor Justice had his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Sparrow. I just wanted to follow up briefly on that question about the, I guess some of the limitations on building down in the floodplain with respect to seismic activity and the potential for liquefaction and so on. Have you done any, I mean, you probably know quite well, but I'm just curious in a general sense, what building down there would add to the cost of a building in a sort of a rough percentage way? Do you have a strong sense of that from the work you've done in costing this thing out?
We actually spent a lot of extra time and spent some money in advance with the, I guess, additional geotech analysis. And we actually brought in an additional engineering firm. So we had Harold's in there. So Harold's Engineering is the same engineering firm that designed the VIU that's adjacent to us. So they have all that experience from the work that was done adjacent to our site. But in addition to that, we actually brought in a geotechnical team made up of engineers from across BC that also evaluated their proposal. Because it, of course, is going to be a bit more costly than it would be if we were constructing on other sites. And so we took that into consideration, and we actually evaluated a number of proposals. This information is part of the indicative design that Candace was alluding to. And you'll find that the proponents are very much aware of this as well, because this information is included in what we call a data room that is provided by Infrastructure BC as they go through the various collaborative phases of our project over the next 3 to 4 months. So that information and those costs will be incorporated in there, and they're already taken into consideration with the scope and the budget of the project.
Okay, can I just ask a quick follow-up? Just in terms of rough numbers, I mean, would it add 5% onto the cost, 25%, 50%? Do you have any?
Yeah, it's actually not as significant as you thought. We had a rough estimate about an additional, it was estimated additional $6 million, and it's actually coming at 2.8 at the moment higher. So we're not talking about, huge amounts of money in comparison to the size and scope of the project, and it's been taken into consideration through the budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Duncan from Duncan. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe when we were building the pump station, we ran into a similar situation, but it was after we'd already started the job, and I think the bill around that one was it's either 500,000 extra or 750,000 extra to stabilize the soil when they got down and they were trying to put the, put the foundations in. We got like the surprise bill. So I hope we don't get the same sort of thing here.
Councillor Duncan, just to respond to that, that is why we've actually had two different phases of geotechnical drilling that's been done there. So we went on that site. We had drill well come in. You must know drill well because they do a lot of work in the immediate area. But we had them come in on two separate occasions, and we doubled up on the amount of drilling they did. And we actually had them to do test boreholes across the entire site. So not just in the area where we're suggesting the school should go, but also in the playground area where the parking is going to be positioned as well. So they've been able to provide these test drill holes. There were 16 that were done actually in the last drill hole testing that we did in September. This is not normally done in advance, but we recognize because of the issues with the site that it was important for us at the school district to do a lot of our due diligence in advance of actually awarding the work to the proponents. This information will be really helpful for them when to help them design their foundation and the structure that will be on that site. So we're hoping we've done through our due diligence, our homework to help them, to help us in the long run.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other hands. All right. Thank you to the delegation from School District 79, Mr. Sparrow. Exciting project. Really looking forward to the ribbon cutting on this thing. It's long overdue, in my opinion, but that's spoken as somebody who graduated from the existing Cow High in 1975, and the building needed work then, so it's good work. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a presentation from BC Housing. We have Malcom McNaughton, who's the Director of Regional Development for Vancouver Island. He's here to provide an update on the support of housing projects in both Duncan and North Cowichan, the one on White Road and the one on Drinkwater. Scheduled to accompany him, I'm not sure if they're here, are Heidi Hartman and Roberta Randall. Are they all present? Oh, there's Roberta. Still waiting for Heidi Hartman is in the room. I just don't see her picture yet. Malcolm, where are you? Oh, there he is. Okay, good. Do you have a PowerPoint, sir? You're muted. We can't hear you.
I do have a PowerPoint. I just have to figure out how to share it with you.
Okay, that's.
Oh, you have it. You have it up already.
Yeah, there you go. So again, to everybody, I would ask us to turn our videos off to preserve the bandwidth. And Malcolm can make his PowerPoint presentation, and please hold your questions till the end. Go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you, Mayor Seabrain, and thank you to all of the Cowichan Council and Mayor and Council for Duncan. I really appreciate it. It's been a while since we've had a chance to meet and catch up, so thank you. Just wanted to give you the update on both projects. We're going to start with the North Cowichan project. So as you introduced, we do have Heidi and Roberta and also Sean, our development manager, who are part of the team to be able to answer questions for folks as we go along. I'd ask you to hold your questions till the end, and then we can go from there, because hopefully we'll be able to answer at least some of your questions as we go through the presentation. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the Drinkwater site that I think most people are familiar with. Next slide. So just recapping, we've got 51 purpose-built, basically manufactured modular homes. They are built to building code. It is 4 stories. And that is not a picture of the actual building, the way it sits on the property. Well, actually it is, but it's just the side view. It's not from the front road. The property will be operated by Lookout Housing and Health Society. And so priority is, of course, being given to Cowichan Valley residents over the age of 19. And so you do have to you do have to have been in the Cowichan Valley, and I'll let Heidi speak to it when we get there about what that really means. Next slide. So this is just a quick update on where we are in the development process. We're very close to getting our building permit. We demoed the house that was there. We've gotten our development permit. Staff has been working tremendously well with our staff. I can say that because I don't think I've had one meeting or phone call on this. So if I'm not involved, that means it's going smoothly. So I would say that it's going very, very well, because I can't think of maybe even one phone call I've had on it. So the staff are to be commended. We're expecting to start site construction in late February, and it usually takes us a couple of months to get all of the site work done, the foundations in, and then once that happens, the stacking of the units goes very quickly, and then there's some time to button up the exteriors, and then opening in the summer months. So we've got a pretty tight time frame for the next 6 months, but usually that is unless something goes terribly wrong for us in the ground as we find, if there's something unknown that we find, then it could delay things. But generally speaking, 6 months to opening is a pretty standard time frame for us once we actually start digging. So next slide, please. And again, this is just the location, and I think we're all familiar with that. So keep the next slide, please. There we go. There's another couple of pictures. So you can see that we're preserving the trees along Drinkwater. I think that's an important factor to think about. We did an assessment on those trees, and so wanted to make sure that we could to do that. It also helps us with managing things like stormwater and that as well, because we've got less impervious surface, and it allows us to orient the building off of Paddle Road. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a layout that you can see how the site works. So the area there on the Drinkwater side where it says ledgestone area, that's where all the existing trees are being preserved. And so you can see that the main entrance is off of Paddle Road. There's also the parking lot there. And again, the parking for this project is really for the people that work there and for the folks that will be coming to provide supports. Generally, the tenants here don't generally own vehicles, so that we've got an outdoor amenity area on the back of the building, and that's an area that is fenced off and provides some privacy for the residents, but also for the neighbors. And you can see where we have our bike storage and our waste bins as well. So that's just kind of the general layout and orientation. So you're not going to really see a whole lot of the building from Drinkwater. It's really going to be from the Paddle Road side. Next slide, please. And again, this is talking about the trees. So there's about 19 trees that are going to be saved. The rest are going to be preserved. And then you can see also in the kind of what we would call the back corner, the trees it was where the new trees are going to be planted. And so you can see there, that's going to provide over the long term some privacy for the neighbors and also for the parking, et cetera, that's there. Next slide, please. And so we've had some ways to provide input. Sorry, just need a little sip of water as I talk here. So we've had the virtual neighborhood dialogue sessions. There's also the small group stakeholder sessions. And then there's the Let's Talk Housing webpage and the BC Housing Community Relations email. And so those items are are the tools that we've used fairly successfully to get out into the community. I do see although I have not personally participated in all of those. I know that Sean has, and I think Heidi's participated in almost all of them. And then I do see all of the community relations emails related to this project, actually to both projects that come through. So next slide, please. And so again, here's our early announcement. This is our timeline. So we're about to go out for construction notification. And then our next step after that is the forming of the community advisory committee. And we typically do those about a month or two before we are ready to open the building. And we get all of the neighbors and all of the community folks that are the businesses nearby and anybody that wants to participate that's a stakeholder in the area get to sit down and really talk about what's going to happen there, how we're going to operate, and then it just creates an opportunity for dialogue. And we find that doing that and providing that dialogue helps to have people get to know each other, exchange information. And so when any issues do come up, they know who to call. They're not calling emergency services if it's not necessary. They can call up somebody at the facility. They know who they're talking to. They can talk about what the problem is, and it's really just a way to have that dialogue. And then typically when we open the housing, they set a schedule. One of the things they do in the first meeting or two is set a schedule for how often they're going to meet and basically stay connected. And typically we see these meeting on a weekly or bi-weekly basis for the first month or two, just as kind of things are sorted out. But quite often these meetings fall off fairly quickly to about once a month. And then just go on from there just as check-in points. Next slide, please. So this is just the snapshot of what we heard, and I don't need to read it all for you. You guys are all capable of that. And so really a lot of what we it wasn't a lot of input that we got. And so really it was almost kind of a one-on-one type of session. I will note though that the website, the Let's Talk website, did receive 371 visits from July 1st to September 30th. So although we didn't get a lot of participation from folks at the actual engagement, we did get quite a few people hitting the website, seeing what's going on. And I guess we're hopeful that most of them we answered their questions or they didn't have any concerns, because otherwise we would have heard more from them. So next slide, please. And now we switch to Duncan. So next, please. So again, this is 48 units, and the building will be 5 stories. And again, same type of priority as we have for the Drinkwater site. A little bit of a different focus on this site, as you'll hear in a little bit when we talk about the operations. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the building is going to be actually operated by the Cowichan Valley Women Against Violence Society, and they're going to have a partnership with Hayam Lelam and Clements Center Society, and those are the folks that are going to be providing support to the residents there. So again, a little bit of a different focus, more of an Indigenous focus, and really trying to meet people with their needs in a cultural way that works for them, and hopefully that having those support partners there will help in terms of the outcomes for the future residents there. Next slide, please. So we're just back a little bit behind where we are in the Drinkwater site. So we're just doing our building design engagement now, and so we're just working through this process. And so we're expecting to run probably about 3 or 4 months behind where we are at White Road, which is actually it's kind of a bit nice because trying to open two housing projects like this in a community where the resources frankly are a little limited is a challenge. So although we'd like them to happen as quickly as possible, it is nice just from an operations standpoint for people to have the time to get organized, to figure out who's going to go in the sites and what the services are and how they're going to be provided. Next slide, please. And again, just taking a look at what the project is going to look like. It's certainly going to be a different look from what is there. Just noting that the property is zoned multifamily. This is something that is contemplated. So it's certainly it is going to be a little different than what is currently there and in the neighborhood. But I think the quality of what you're going to see and the look of it when it's finished is going to be something that it will eventually fit in as the rest of the neighborhood develops as well. Next slide, please. So again, just an overhead view of where everything sits on the site, where we've got some parking at the front, and then we've got some amenity space, outdoor amenity space. It is a rather tight site, but just making sure that that there is amenity space, there is places for people to gather both inside and out, and then also you can see the landscaping that is being proposed on that side where the existing neighbors are. So there's a couple of existing trees there that we're going to retain, and then there's some additional fencing and planting that's going to occur on that side as well. So next slide, please. And this is just a little bit more detail of what you can see and the first floor plan. So you can see the amenity space there. You can also see where the parking is in the main entrance and how the building functions. It's a much narrower building than the Drinkwater one. So yeah, and you can see again where the landscaping is proposed as well. Next slide, please. And again, from the engagement standpoint, we've done the early announcement. I know there's been some discussion around the design piece, and we are going to be doing further building design engagement as we go forward. And then once our permitting is complete, we'll of course provide construction notification. We have had some discussions already with some of the neighbors adjacent to us. And so some of those discussions have already taken place and will continue to take place. And then again, in the fall, a month or two before we're ready to have folks moving in, the Community Advisory Committee, which will be a separate committee for this building and these partnerships from the Drinkwater one. Each one of our housing projects has a separate Community Advisory Committee for supportive housing. Next slide, please. And again, we had some additional folks that participated in this. So we had a few more people engaged, which was good. We got to hear what they had to say and got to understand what their concerns were and got to work with them on that. And we're going to continue to stay engaged with them. Just a note, we had a little bit more interest, not a lot, but we had 408 website visits from July to September. Sorry, I don't have the September to December numbers yet for everybody, but so I'm just going off kind of the data that we have. But again, we had 4 sessions and really had an opportunity to interact with folks and certainly hear what their concerns are. Next slide, please. There we go. And Heidi, I mean, I've talked a little bit about the CACs. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about the operations at each of the housing sites, and then maybe talk about the CACs as well.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. I invite everybody to turn their videos back on, and I'll start taking hands. But Heidi, the floor is yours to talk about community engagement. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So I can start by just confirming what Malcolm said about the intent of the Community Advisory Committee. That's our opportunity to really connect with the direct neighbors, check in on what's working very well so that we can continue that, and also to be responsive to what may be challenges in the community. Members would include representation from the respective municipal partners, the Rcmp, Island Health, obviously the nonprofit operator, and direct business neighbors, or either a business association or a neighbor. So we're happy to look at and have been actively collecting any interest from community members on who want to be a member of that. But again, that's our opportunity to be responsive and be a good neighbor to the neighboring housing solutions there. With regard, sorry?
Just to be clear, Heidi, when you talk about municipal partners, we're talking staff here, not politicians, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes. Very good.
I think we're good with that, but I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and we do find that that works very well to have a designated staff person participate. In terms of operations, the operational model is staffed 24/7, and that's the opportunity to be able to connect with folks and have an on-site presence there. As Malcolm mentioned, folks will be prioritized from Duncan and North Cowichan and from Cowichan as to residents. Those conversations are actually already happening. We're really excited to be implementing the coordinated access and assessment process. And that's really key too, because that's where we really are thoughtful and mindful about the people that need the supportive housing and making sure that their needs are met on the housing site. And that's where we're matching what their support needs are to the particular site. So both for the lookout site and for the partnership site, we'll be very thoughtful about who goes into the respective sites. And the benefit to that is taking the time and ensuring that folks not only have the support, but they settle and are successful in the housing option. Happy to take any more questions as well.
Councillor Manhas, then Councillor Marsh, and Councillor Newington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. McNaughton and Ms. Hartman. Can you tell me what the difference is between or similarities between the hotels that have been purchased in Victoria and these two projects, in particular, the Drinkwater Road location?
You want me to go, Malcolm, or you?
Yeah, you can take that one.
Okay, great. So the opportunity here is that these are purpose-built housing. You know, there's specific design considerations so that we know they can successfully house people and have all those design components like one point of access, a secured entrance, the fobs that we find that work so well with giving residents access to their units. These units also have some sense of self-containment, so there are food prep abilities there for folks within their independent unit, or they can continue to participate in the daily food program that includes a cold breakfast and hot dinner.
I thought in Victoria the hotels also had kitchen facilities or some sort of facilities where you can cook your own meals. Is that
Not a-
true or not?
Yeah, not all of them do. The majority are just independent or in units, like a bed and TV and their own bathroom.
And what about the staffing at the hotels? Are the hotels staffed the same way that these facilities will be?
Yes, they are staffed 24/7, just like these sites. But the difference again is that these modular sites are purpose-built with all our design specifications that just make it that much more successful than a hotel. What we're finding here in Victoria is that hotels have a lot of different egress points, and that monitoring all those egress points can be challenging to the operations.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I asked that question, because I know there's a lot of challenges happening in Victoria right now regarding crime in those around those areas that are having an effect on businesses and residences in some of those areas. So that's why I wanted to see what the differences or similarities were. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Manus. Councillor Marsh, then Councillor Newington. Anybody else want to put their, and Councillor Justice? Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank BC Housing for the really extensive information on the website about these projects, and including questions and concerns of, I assume, people in the neighborhood of the area, and your answers. I think that was a really wise thing to do, and I really appreciate it. The one thing I couldn't find, and it's probably there and I couldn't find it, is how do you decide who gets to live there in either of these places, and when do you decide that? I mean, not just in general, like from where, but specific people.
Well, thanks for the question, and that really speaks to the coordinated access and assessment process. And there will be a placement table in Duncan, which is made up of service providers as well as the housing providers. And BC Housing also sits and coordinates that, but we really rely on the community expertise on knowing the folks, the applicants, and knowing how best to support them in the housing solutions.
Okay, may I have one follow-up, please, Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I see that C-Wave is involved. So I'm presuming, but I don't want to presume without confirmation, that there are a number of units set aside for women and children who are fleeing abuse. Am I correct?
You're correct in one sense that it is, there will be an entire floor set aside for women fleeing violence who are experiencing homelessness, and their needs can be met at the site. These are independent or one unit, so we can't put families in there. So this will be focused only on individuals, not on families.
And they have to be homeless already?
Or experiencing homelessness. But they may be precariously housed or staying in shelter or come from the street. And C-Wave, as the provider, will assist us in the criteria and give us a good sense of what their support they'll be offering so we can match people.
So that does bring up one more question for me. Is that all right, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what about women who have kids and have to flee abuse? What are either of these facilities that you've talked about going to give them an opportunity?
These are singles housing, so unfortunately not, but I know there is work being done to be able to provide another solution. We find for a family in the supportive housing, that model isn't as successful. So we want to make sure that women and children fleeing violence have their own independent housing option.
Okay, so you're probably thinking about the Drinkwater Road site that North Cowichan has offered?
You mean the Sherman Road one?
Oh, Sherman Road. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. All right.
Nobody wants to answer that one?
No, I was going to respond with that too, because that's kind of what's envisioned for part of the Sherman Road project. So, Councillor Newington is next. Go ahead, sir, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Councillor Marsh asked the questions that I was going to ask, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you getting us all this information. It's wonderful. Thank you.
And speaking of the information, somebody texted me and said, can this PowerPoint be made available to us by email? Malcolm, or can one of your staff make sure that it gets forwarded? Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Justice. And then I have Mayor Staples on the list as well. Councillor Justice.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Councillor Marsh also asked the meat of my questions too, but just to follow up briefly on that, outside of, I guess outside of pretty dense cities, it must be somewhat unusual having two distinct supportive housing projects in such proximity. So in addition to coordinating placements of client groups, what other opportunities or issues arise from having these two in close proximity? Is there any other sorts of coordination that are envisioned for this?
Thanks for the question, and I'm hoping I answer it succinctly for you. But you know, the coordination of identifying folks and matching them to their respective housing is the key piece of that work. And as Malcolm said, we're going to have separate community advisory committee meetings because they are very distinct communities. We anticipate that the nonprofit operators will do a lot of connecting between them, and we will be very supportive of that.
Thanks.
I was a little bit surprised actually because I was under the impression that Lookout was going to be running both of these. Today was the first I'd heard of the shared in front of the White Road site. Is that new, or was that the vision all along?
We started working on this that partnership back in the late summer, early fall, and that was in recognition of the number of Indigenous folks in your community and wanting to make sure we have a appropriate solution to address that. So we're excited. Yeah, we're really excited about the opportunity because it not only builds nonprofit capacity within Duncan and North Cowichan, but it meets and succeeds in addressing Indigenous housing and culturally appropriate housing.
Mayor Staples.
Mayor Sebring, and yeah, thanks for the presentation. It's great to have an update and hear where everything's at and sort of the stage that we're at in moving this forward, and just really appreciate all the work that everyone has put into this. And just in terms of the next steps for two things, I guess. One is around the assessment of people to go into both of these establishments and the support services that surround them, just so that there isn't any, I guess, just so that there's a lot of clarity around how the assessment process works. Are you able to share a bit more about that for selection of the clients? And then also in terms of the, you know, there is, from my understanding, this is very different from, say, the situation that Councillor Mann has referred to in Victoria with the hotels. This type of supported housing, you know, has been around for a long time and comes with, you know, a very different criteria than was able to be provided for in sort of the quick purchase of the hotels and placement of just moving people into an establishment without that sort of long-term assessment process. So can you maybe speak to that? I just want to just be really clear that they are very, different. They're very different types of housing opportunities for people and different types of support services.
And thanks for identifying that. It's an excellent point, because in addition to this being purpose-built housing, in Victoria, it was a decampment process in response to a provincial order. So we didn't have that opportunity to do the thorough assessment or have that placement table model that we're talking about today. So as part of the placement table, the community, the placement table would identify priority populations with regard to the housing sites. And it may be something like you have to be a resident of the community for 6 months or a year. They may take a look at the data and say they want to prioritize people experiencing homelessness that have lived in a shelter for a year. Those are opportunities. Prior to COVID, we were using the VAT tool, the vulnerability assessment tool, and I think I've spoken about that before. Just with COVID, we've had to adjust that process just because we're not always able to do the really one-to-one and that assessment tool in person. So we'll be looking at all those options, but really want to confirm that this is very different from Victoria because we are doing assessment. It isn't a provincial order that we have to move people in over a 10-day period. We're going to start thinking about who moves in the coming months. We're actively collecting applications, and we're looking forward to starting those conversations and that placement table in Duncan and North Cowichan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marsh.
I'm sorry, did you say you're actively accepting applications now?
We are, yes.
So where would the people apply?
So they can apply online, as well as all the outreach providers. Any of the shelter operators have those applications on hand or are already collecting them.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just practically speaking, White Road is a very tight little street, and I see a little bit of parking along the front, but is that it for parking? It's a very tight situation there, and then you got, of course, Hospital Hill coming down onto that intersection for White Road. Has that been thought about with this this presentation, Malcolm?
Yeah, so again, the folks that are going to be living there are not going to be owning cars typically. We don't really have residents that own vehicles. So really the parking that is there is for the people that work there and for the support workers that come in. And so typically you have two people that are 24/7, so they cycle through. So you've got a couple of cars there all the time, assuming that people aren't riding their bikes or walking to work. And so then if you have a couple of folks that are visiting or provide support services, then you've got a couple of more stalls there. So yeah, I think we're going to be fine on the parking. We don't see a lot of parking demand for these types of projects at all. It's not your typical multifamily by any stretch of the imagination. And typically also it's not like it's not even like an old folks home where you have people coming to visit, well, except under COVID, but you have people coming to visit all the time and that kind of thing. There's not even a lot of visitation that goes on in the building. Again, there's restrictions, there's security at the front desk, etc. In terms of the intersection and in terms of the design of that, I'm not sure if Sean's still on. He can maybe speak to whether we've spoken to staff about that, but that's something that we'd be looking at certainly in the building permit and design and DP phase. But we have been talking to staff about these designs all the way along.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Also, on the White Road one, Malcolm, there are three organizations that are providing the running of the place on a daily basis. And if push came to shove, if something went wrong, whose feet do we keep to the fire? In other words, if things aren't going well, I'm sure they will, but if things are not going well, how do we and who do we see as far as is it an organization set up amongst those three groups that are going to be running this thing, or how do you, anyways? If
I'll let Heidi answer that one.
Yeah, another great question, and the answer is it would be C-Wave. BC Housing will be entering into an agreement, an operator agreement with Cowichan Women Against Violence. And Cowichan Women Against Violence are entering into an MOU with the other partners. So C-Wave will do the property management and distribute the funds to the other partners for the support services. So they will be the point of contact and they will be responsible for the property management there.
Does that answer your questions, Councillor Bruce?
Thank you.
All right. For some reason, I've lost my video. I just got a message that says your camera's not hooked up. So I'd ask Councillor Manhas to take over his chair because I'm going to log out and fix that and come back in. Councillor Manhas is our acting/deputy mayor for this month. So I'm just going to pop out of the meeting for a minute and then come back. Hopefully I can get my camera fixed. I had nobody else on the speakers list, so I think we're done with BC Housing unless I see any other hands. Thank you guys very much for showing up. Very informative presentation. And to all the councillors present, I just got a note from staff. We will be getting copies of all three PowerPoints in email later today, and that's for both Duncan and North Cowichan staff. We have them on file here at North Cowichan, and they'll be emailed to you at the conclusion of the meeting. So thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to log out and back in. So Councillor Manhas, if you can take us into item 4.3. Thank you.
Mr. Manhas, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. I don't have the agenda in front of me, so Trish, can you help me out with 4.3? Wait a minute. Or I can pull up the agenda.
Councillor Manhas, it's the presentation from the Cowichan Historical Society.
Oh yes, can we? And I see Ms. Kitson there. So, Ms. Kitson, whenever you're ready.
And I believe Carolyn Prelwitz will also be.
I don't see Carolyn.
Oh yeah, there she is. I see her.
Okay, yeah, I see Carolyn. Okay, so whenever you guys are ready, Ms. Kitson and Ms. Prelwitz, please. Did you have a presentation? You're muted, Ms. Kitson. Ms. Kitson, you're still muted.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to meet with you. It was an opportunity we couldn't miss. So I would like to introduce myself, Sheila Kitson, President of the Cowichan Historical Society, and I have with me Carolyn Prelwitz, who is one of the directors. I would like to update you on the activity of the Historical Society to give you a background view of things before you can make any decisions. So if you will bear with me, I will read it to you. The Cowichan Historical Society is a non-profit society registered with under the Societies Act of British Columbia. They function with an executive of president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary, and 6 directors for a total elected board of 10 persons. Board meetings are held monthly. Since May 2020, we have met via Zoom. A general meeting of the Society with a guest speaker was held monthly until the arrival of COVID to our community. To keep the membership involved while general meetings are postponed, a monthly newsletter has been distributed electronically to all of our 84 members since last May. We function with 6 committees which meet when needed. Our membership committee is comprised of 3 directors and has increased the Society's membership to 84 this year. Even with the COVID pandemic, 24 more than at the same time last year. The membership application has been reworked and a new personalized membership card produced. Presently, the Duncan Chamber of Commerce, of which we are a member, are assisting to increase our membership within their membership. The membership committee also negotiated with the BC Discovery Centre and the Royal BC Museum in Victoria a discount on admission to their institutions in return for a discount on purchases in our gift shop. A good example of like-minded collaboration. The admission to the local museum is by donation. Our Health and Safety Committee was established this year in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It developed a COVID-19 protocol following the guidelines of WorkSafe BC, an illness policy for staff and volunteers, a basic first aid and universal precautions policy, a worker, those employed or a volunteer, a safety orientation guide, and revised the accident incident form, all of which have been adopted by the Board of Directors. The Health and Safety Committee also work in collaboration with the Maintenance Committee to overlapping issues such as ensuring the fire extinguishers are updated. Our maintenance, a committee of 2 who continue with a never-ending to-do list. Our collections committee, who looks after accessioning and deaccessioning of items in the museum. It's made up of society directors, society members, and the curator as an ex officio participant. We have a nominating committee. According to our bylaws, 3 directors are appointed to be responsible for convincing unsuspecting but willing individuals to serve on the Society's board. First, they must be elected at the Society's AGM, held in a non-COVID time in March. The successful candidate or candidates then are welcomed by the other board members. The directors serve for 2 years, the executive for 1 year, and the president no more than 3 consecutive years. Our Duncan Train Station Preservation Committee was also formed this past year. 3 board members, the curator manager, and a society member have combined to work with local heritage consultant David Coulson to apply for funding under the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program, a provincial government grant for work involving heritage projects. A business plan of the project was written and given board approval. This is 100% funding, not having to find matching funds, which in ours and for many other nonprofit organizations is difficult to do without having any surplus cash. The train station project was what they called shovel ready, and the application, including the project business plan, was filed by the deadline, the end of October this year. Now we must await the decision of the adjudication committee and stay tuned. We hope to have some good news soon. The Cowichan Historical Society own and operates the Cowichan Valley Museum and Archives. The museum is found in the heritage designated 109-year-old Duncan train station, the archives on the 3rd floor of Duncan City Hall. I must take the opportunity to emphasize that even though our museum and archives are situated within the boundaries of the city of Duncan, our collections, both in the museum and the archives, are regional. It is stated on our May 31st, 1974 Certificate of Incorporation, the locality in which the operation of the Society will be chiefly carried on is the Cowichan Valley and the surrounding area. The collection area of both the museum and archives is from Maple Bay east to the east to Poldy in the west, and from Westholme in the north and Goldstream Park in the south. The museum collection consists of artifacts, man-made three-dimensional objects cherished for their cultural and/or historical values. They are to be found in the museum. The museum holds many multifaceted artifacts, from First Nations items to collections of material demonstrating the diversity of the Cowichan Valley, including the Chinese, Japanese, and South Asians, as well as the migrants from the United Kingdom. Examples of artifacts in the museum are the hand-carved items by noted First Nations carver Simon Charlie and the tools made by early pioneers of the valley. The archives collection consists of documented records of events, circumstances, observations, perceptions, or actions, which are preserved because of their enduring value. Archives are considered primary source materials for information and research, as they provide recorded testimony of the historical identity of an individual, a society, a place, or historical accountability of an event or an action. These take many forms: minutes of meetings, school registers, school board meetings, and old maps. The Cowichan Valley Archives is recognized for its collection of information related to logging, ships, agriculture, Cowichan sweaters, and early Chinese and Sikh residents. We have a lease. The Duncan train station, in which our museum is housed, is owned by the Island Corridor Foundation, who lease it to the City of Duncan, who in turn sublease it to the Cowichan Historical Society for a nominal annual fee. We are in the 5th year of a 20-year of a sublease with the City of Duncan. The Cowichan Historical Society is given and appreciate a property tax exemption of $2,045 a year by the city. We're in the final year of a 5-year lease with the City of Duncan for the space provided for the archives on the 3rd floor of City Hall. The current lease expires on October the 31st of this year. For our operation, we have one full-time staff member, the curator manager, and she has been maintained on full salary thanks to the federal wage subsidy program as a result of the current pandemic. The museum was closed mid-March 2020 due to the provincial-wide lockdown that came about due to COVID-19. It reopened twice weekly for 4 hours a day, beginning October 27th of last year. With the assistance of one front desk volunteer, it closed on December 17th and will reopen on the 2nd, again twice weekly, yet dependent on provincial COVID-19 regulations. The archives on the 3rd floor of Duncan City Hall closed mid-March and reopened to our 4 volunteer archivists only on the 3rd of June of last year, as per the City Hall COVID-19 protocols. The archivists have been handling public inquiries by telephone and email. Tourism, when we get back to normal, and the tourists do come. In 2019, the count was over 12,000 visitors to the museum. And what is the first building the tourist sees when getting off the tour bus? The Duncan train station. We must thank the City of Duncan for strategically moving the tour bus stop to Duncan Street, thus making the totem poles, well-tended gardens, and the museum so inviting to those exiting from their bus. Much research goes on in the archives, and a record is being kept. Visits of persons to the archives in search of information and varied research via a sign-in process at the main desk inside the archives room. These sign-in records have been kept since 2003 to 2019 and show a geographical breakdown. When looking at this, you will see that most of the inquiries come from the residents of North Cowichan. Some come from other parts of Canada and beyond. At this time, the archivists have not collated a similar geographic breakdown for all the requests they receive via telephone or email. We do have a website. It's 16 years old and outdated. It needs a major overhaul. Take a look yourself. One of the directors, who has excellent knowledge with the archiving of photographs is working with our webmaster to secure a system that will improve the availability of the photographs when requested by the public. A Facebook page was started in 2019, but is still in its infancy. COVID-19 has not all been all bad as far as the society and the museum is concerned. It has made us become more aware as to our deficiencies and how we need to move into a different technology medium to be able to attract more community and public interests by being online, something for which we currently have the lack of technological know-how to perform. Money for our staff and volunteers to attend professional workshops would be an asset to remedy this situation. We do have a strategic plan for the society. In May 2018, the board held a day-long workshop. The result, after fine-tuning, became a strategic plan. This strategic plan, formally approved and adopted by the board in June of 2019, includes regular and reliable financing and funding. Financial assistance from the 3 local governments was number 1 on the list. Conservation of the Duncan train station building was another, that is underway. An increase of membership is another, and the latter is happening. How would reliable funding be used? Primarily operating expenses, staff salary, electrical, telephone, internet, maintenance supplies, office supplies, insurance, etc. Contribute to a fire suppression system, our website up and upgrades of office equipment in both and the museum and archives. We recognize that a 5-year plan is needed, but without reliable annual funding, it is difficult to plan and look ahead. Under the current financial situation and local government grants, North Cowichan, a grant in aid of $4,000 that was used for operational funding. The CVRD gave a grant in aid in 2019 of $3,000, and that was for a heritage symposium that we hosted and provided educational work too. The City of Duncan, they give an annual grant of $9,150. They also give $17,480 for the hiring of a person to do totem tours and for paying one of our volunteers at our front desk that provides tourist information. They also gave a grant in aid this year of $5,000 towards the train station conservation. We do, as mentioned previously, have the property tax exemption. You will see in the income and expenses a provincial community gaming grant of $39,000. This provides wages and supplies for the school program that we give. Requests, I refer you to the briefing notes under requested contribution, and thank you for being patient. I hope you will consider our request for much needed funding. I will leave you with the following quotation. A people without the knowledge of their history is like a tree without roots. And this is credited to Marcus Garvey. Thank you very much for your time, and I would be pleased to answer questions should you have any.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you're back. So did you want to take over the chairmanship?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it. Why not? Not seeing any hands up. Do we have any hands? Oh, there's several hands now. Let's start with Councillor Bruce, Councillor Toporowski, Councillor Manhas, and Marsh. Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering, Sheila, I see that you have this request now for funding is from the Muni, from the city, and the CVRD. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Okay. Would it be appropriate to invite the native band to be part of that? And that what I was thinking was if you increased it to 4 participants that way, then you could maybe even lower the thing down from $15,000 to $12,000 and end up with a bit more money in your jeans.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, why would they? Do you think the native band would be at all interested? They're going to be a great part of this the society, so maybe they would like to participate.
Well, our curator manager has, thank you for the suggestion. She has a good working relationship with the First Nations people locally, and I'll certainly put that forward to her. And thank you for that. Yes.
All right, let's move on to Councillor Toporowski.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Ms. Kitson, for your presentation. My question is, how is your application and the status of the application for phase 1? I see you put it's in our but it doesn't say when or if you've got an answer back for that one yet.
Thank you, Councillor Toporowski. We won't be hearing until possibly the middle of February as to when any of the grants, it was oversubscribed, so they're taking a little bit longer to come up with results, but we hope to hear by about the middle of February.
Okay, and then that phase 2 says $148,000.
Yes.
And I might have missed it, or I've read a lot, so I might have missed it. Are you applying for grants for that too as well, or?
It's included in the overall. We've applied for the whole amount.
Oh, okay.
Get that. Yeah.
And also to the previous comment about Cowichan tribes, it wouldn't hurt to ask if they would like to participate in some funding towards the museum. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Toporowski. Maybe we can count on you for some help.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toporowski. I've got Councillor Manhas and then Marsh. Councillor Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank, first of all, Ms. Kitson, Ms. Perlwitz, and their curator for helping us out about a year and a half ago when we celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Paul D. Sikh Temple. You guys had a great exhibit, and then a lot of people went to the temple there, and then they also dropped by the museum to see the exhibit. My question is a couple of questions. Membership. What's your current membership?
84 members right now. Director Perlwitz can give us a final number right now, an up-to-date number.
You're muted, Ms. Perlwitz.
Okay, 84 members then. Yes. 84 members.
Okay, and also I know Joan Mayo actually has passed over all her books to the museum for fundraising to help you guys out on the book on Paul D. And how is that going?
It's been very quiet, of course, this summer because we've been closed. But yes, we're very grateful to Joan for doing that. And they sell well. People are very interested. So they are available in the gift shop.
Yes, I know that quite a few were sold during the Paul D celebrations too.
Yes, there again, they went well. Yes.
Yeah, we sold out whatever we had on hand there.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've got Councillor Marsh, and then I'm going to put myself on the list. I've got a couple of questions as well, and then Mayor Staples. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Mayor, and hi, Sheila.
Hi, Kate.
Well, first I wanted to say how meaningful the archives have been for me. My uncle, Roy, was killed in the Second World War when he was 19 years old. And when I started having children, especially when I had my son, it just really called me, and I was able to find, actually it was his obituary in the city, I think it was. I think that what you said, the quote, it just really, really speaks to me. And I know that many, many other communities do fund museums. So, you know, I'm grateful that you're giving us an opportunity to debate about that. The question that I have for you is, On Facebook and probably other places, people can donate to certain groups, and I don't know if they have to be a particularly well-known group or not. But have you thought of setting up something like that if it's possible?
Councillor Marsh, we do have on our Facebook page what's called Canada Helps, and you can donate to the museum through that. We did go on a really big membership blitz just before the end of the year, because we are able to give a CRA receipt to people.
Right.
So we thought that, and that did work too. We brought in about $1,500. So that is greatly appreciated.
Well, my thinking is there's 82,000 people in the valley, so I'm sort of visualizing a lot more than $1,500. What is your website?
Carolyn,
Historical Society?
Actually, if you just Google Cowichan Valley Museum and Archives, it will pop up.
Okay, and do you have an option for monthly donations? That's the way I prefer to do things.
That's another good idea. Thank you.
I have a feeling about if everyone did a little bit of monthly donations, all of our nonprofits wouldn't be struggling. So that's what I do. So is that a possibility on the website, or?
Everything is a possibility, Councillor Marsh, but thank you for the suggestion. Sometimes you get a bit bogged down and you can't think of anything new, so that's a good one. Thank you.
I'll give you one last tip, if I may, Mr. Mayor. The track, Chesterfield track, they take donations. I think it goes as low as I don't know what, very low. I give them only $4 a month because I have about 6 different groups to donate to, and so if you might want to consider that.
Thank you.
Many of us are from families that our parents. My dad was born here. I think that you might find that there is an interest, and I really, really hope you get that heritage funding, because that is one beautiful building, and you're right, the city has kept Charles Hoy Park in really great condition. So best of luck, and thank you for all of the volunteers that are helping you curator keep things going.
Just as an aside, Councillor Marsh, we're looking at probably close to $250,000 by the time the grants are all done. And that will all be spent locally as much as humanly possible. So under David Anderson as being our general contractor, we'll be able to keep the money at home. So I think that's important, as well as employing people.
Yeah, that's one of Dave's things, is to try and do that. So that's really great.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. And that leads to my question, just for clarity, Sheila, a couple of things. In our council meeting yesterday, we approved $4,000 for your society as part of our grant today. So you have some money from us at North Cowichan.
Thank you.
What exactly are you looking for in this presentation? Because there was a lot of numbers flying around. And I mean, if you get this Rcmp funding, what more do you need? What are you going to get? And what are you looking for from us as North Cowichan and the city?
What we're looking for, Mayor Sebring, is that we're looking for operational funds so that we don't have to go out for special funds such as the community gaming grant for school programs, etc. But operational funds is what we're looking for, so that we, well, frankly, don't have the electricity cut off. And that's where we can't really plan on what we want to do, whether it be with the 5-year plan, etc. So that, because we don't know what we've got, it's going out there and passing the hat all the time.
Mr. Mayor, on page 5 of the agenda, it says that they're requesting from the city, the district, and the CVRD a line item in the amount of $15,000 from each of those groups.
All right. Well,
So I have a question of you, Mr. Mayor.
Actually,
Since it's a joint meeting,
yeah,
can we refer something to council from here or no?
yes, we can refer something to our council from here. Duncan, because they're not properly convened, the whole can't, but I'm sure their staff can take notes and take something forward to their next or council meeting.
So I'd like to, since we've already are supporting this group and we were undersubscribed a bit in our grants and aid, I'd like to refer this to our next CAL meeting to have a discussion of whether or not we can make up the 11,000 or some portion of it.
So it's a motion then to forward this issue, this funding request to the next North Cowichan Committee of the Whole meeting.
Yeah.
Can I have a seconder from North Cowichan? Seconded by Councillor Justice. Any discussion among my councillors? Seeing none, all in favor? And opposed, that motion carries. Thank you very much. I had Mayor Staples on my list next. Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, in terms of this meeting, I think there was a bit of confusion at the beginning, but as the meeting is started the way that it is, I suggest we just carry on with it. But we can definitely direct staff, I believe our staff, to bring this to our next or to a council meeting on our end, even though we're not convened as two councils as we normally are during these meetings. So that's just a note that I'd like to just pass on to our staff at this time. And then the other question, I think part of it, I feel like was just answered in terms of what they would go to. That was one of the questions that I had, was what exactly were you looking for? And I think that that's been understood. And if I did also understand and hear in your presentation, is that this is also to go towards like, you know, updating some communications infrastructure, like things like with website and the ability to connect with the community and share information and all those, which is a really important piece of what you need to update. Is that correct? That's also what some of this funding, or is that a different funding pot?
No, that would be, thank you, Mayor Staples, that would be this type of funding, because so often when you go out applying for grants, you have to have matching funds, and we don't have matching funds. So that's where we are in a difficult position there. But we've certainly realized with this COVID situation that when you can't open up to the public as you normally do, then you've got to have an alternative. And many of the museums have gone online. They've provided walk around tours, etc. So we need to do that and get people, particularly local people. So many people say, where is the museum? I've always meant to go there and never have. So it's we need to move into the new age, screaming.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments here?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Mayor, I believe Councillor Justice had his hand up earlier.
Oh, he did. I'm sorry. I hadn't written down. Councillor Justice, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a quick question. Hi, Sheila. What caught my interest there, one of the things was the collection area for archival materials. I was just curious. It seems very strange in a way, but I suppose it has to do with the location of other museums. But if not, can you correct me? I mean, why do we go all the way down to Goldstream and only up as far as Westrom? And I can understand why we only go as far east as Maple Bay, but the other part of the question is Crofton considered as part of that area?
It's Councillor Justice, yes, but it is just because other museums are within the area. There's 5 other museums between Ladysmith and Shawnigan Lake. And so one is respectful, but I think we have a very good archives. It's well maintained, and there are special ways to store material too. So it is just because of artificial boundaries almost.
But sorry, just to be clear, you said Crofton is part of that collection area?
They do have a small museum in Crofton, but really there's not too much activity. But yes, you could probably find material in our archives about Crofton. Yeah.
Thanks.
Or it could be in the Chemainus Museum. I don't know.
No, that's the thing. I mean, we've got Chemainus, Crofton, Ladysmith, Lake Cowichan, and Shawnee Lake all have their own museums. So
correct.
That's part of the situation. Any other questions? Seeing, Carolyn, are you talking to us or are you talking to somebody on the phone? Because you're muted.
The phone kept ringing. Sorry about that. Just wanted to add some more information about the archives and the collection area. We do overlap with some of the areas like Crofton, but we do have a fair amount of information in the archives on that community. I can say that because I'm one of the 4 volunteers in there, and I'm familiar with quite a bit of the collection. We also store the archival records of the Cobble Hills Society and the Bamberton Society in the archives, which, as Sheila mentioned, are on the 3rd floor of City Hall. And those archives are all your paper documents, and as Sheila mentioned, these are your primary research documents, and that's one of the reasons why we get researchers from out of the country coming to our area with the specifics that we have in our archives.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. As you heard, we will consider this in the coming committee of the whole in terms of North Cowichan. I think I've heard Mayor Staples give similar direction to her staff to bring it forward to the politicians there. Committee of the wholes are not where we make decisions, it's where we kick things around and get information, and we certainly got lots of that today. So thank you very much, Sheila and Ms. Prowitz, and enjoyed your presentations.
Thank you to all of you, and I do realize that it's not something you can make a decision, a hasty decision, but certainly, and if there's any other information that we can provide, we'd be happy to do so. So we're just an email or a phone call away. So may I take the opportunity, though, this is totally out of line, but happy birthday, Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, I was going to do that too, and I'd forgotten. Thank you, Sheila.
Couldn't resist the opportunity. And you realize we're just 6 months away from the longest day of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the final item on the agenda, which is sort of a business item between our 2 councils, and that is the Inter-Municipal Relationship Protocol. Do we have somebody from staff that wants to introduce this? I know Peter's been doing a lot of work on it, and Ted sent me even some potential updates as recently as a half hour before the meeting. Who wants to take the lead on this so we all know what we're talking about? I mean, we have the document in our agendas, but I think there's some last minute changes. Maybe Peter or Ted?
Mr. Mayor, Peter is going to screen share and work us through it.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Nevertai.
Thank you, councils. Oh, it's not starting yet. Alrighty. So what I'd like to propose is a little bit, I think Ted and I have had a quick conversation before the meeting, something to make a little bit more clarity, because we really, it would be nice to make sure that the between how we treat different like resolutions of different agreements the same. Everybody see my screen now?
No.
No? That's not good. All right, now are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Okay, this portion of the protocol agreement is where I had initially proposed to delete the word agreement, just out of some concern that some of our agreements have a very specific dispute resolution that does require arbitration at some end point. But rather than do that, what I've suggested is that keeping in the flavor of the. Sorry, have you ever heard me? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So just that in keeping with the spirit of the protocol agreement, where essentially everything runs through a negotiation first prior to moving to an arbitration. What I'd like to propose instead is that just after item 3 in the process, that we add a resolution simply says.
Okay, all we got now is your desktop.
You can see it now. So if the issue is still unresolved after negotiations and assistance from the dispute resolution officer, and the issue is the subject of an existing agreement that includes the option of arbitration, the arbitration provisions of the agreement may still be utilized as detailed in the agreement. I think in some respects a minor change, but the dispute resolution process in the community charter doesn't actually allow for a binding arbitration, and by having the language that was originally proposed would result in potentially us not resolving that finality, if it ever came to that, obviously with a lot of negotiation processes in place that should never in theory happen, but just in case.
All right, so I think you can stop sharing your screen. I'm assuming everybody's had a look at that. Basically, what I'm hearing you say is we're adding one additional bullet to the conflict resolution process at the bottom of page 9 of our agenda. For the agendas that we have, which sort of more finalizes and provides some more finality to dispute resolution if it comes to that we could actually, if necessary, go to some other dispute resolution processes, including arbitration, if that's detailed in the agreement that's under discussion. I certainly don't have any objection to it. Folks, if you could turn your cameras back on. Do we have any questions or concerns about this from either North Cowichan or Duncan? I'm not sure whether the Duncan Council has seen this. It seems like a pretty good housekeeping thing to me. All right. From the North Cowichan perspective, again, I would entertain the motion that the committee recommend to council the approval of the revised City of Duncan and Municipality of North Cowichan Inter-Municipal Relationship Protocol Agreement as attached, or substantially as attached, to the January 21st, 2021 Committee of the Whole agenda. Can I have that motion in North Cowichan? Councillor Sari, seconder from Councillor Toporowski. Any discussion on this? All right, so that'll be going, all in favor? Was that discussion, Councillor Marsh, or a vote?
I just had a question.
Oh, go ahead.
You're moving the whole protocol at with all of the edits?
Yes.
Okay.
So all in favor of the motion? Okay, and opposed? That carries. And Councillor Mayor Staples, I'm assuming you'll want to do the same thing with your council, but, and sorry about the misunderstanding that this wasn't a concurrent. Okay. I just defer to staff and they said it was a cow, so we're good. But you guys can handle this procedure. My only question, and it's kind of geeky, is how do we sign this thing during the age of COVID when we can't get into a room and sign? Do we all affix our electronic signatures when it passes both councils, or do we cross that bridge when we get there?
Mail chain. I guess we can cross that bridge when we come to it, and staff can let us know how we move through that.
Peter and I get the big bucks, and we'll take the risk and come.
Oh, so you'll come around to our office.
We'll put our PPE on, and we'll come and see each mayor.
Maybe we'll come around together. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, given that we've just had a really cool presentation about the archives, is that we should, we're doing it in the age of COVID, use our electronic signatures. This will become part of the archival material. And so why don't we remind people that that's what we had to do?
Might be a way to do it. Actually, add a clause to the bottom of it, yeah. All right, seeing no further business on the agenda, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Duncan Council, Mayor Staples. Enjoyed our time together. Sorry we couldn't actually be together, but
Look forward to when we can.
Nice to see you all, though.
Nice to see you all too.